Hello, this is Sean, and this is another video for TightPoker.com. Today's videos will be about PokerTracker 3 and building a great HUD. We've talked a bit about other programs and what you need to do in HUDs, but we thought we'd give PokerTracker 3 some more love and get into a bit about what this HUD can do and why it's so powerful and why so many people like it. So from the program, let's go in and go to Configure, and we'll go to Configure HUD. And this brings up the main HUD profiles, and this is where you're going to be building your groups. And think of a group as like a bucket or a box, and inside that box are all the stats that you want displayed at the table. The more boxes, the more stats. So some people like to have, for an individual person, several boxes so that they could put one of the boxes on top of their name and one of the other boxes below their name. It's my preference to actually put all the statistics in one giant box. But I also have this pop-up as well as table. You can do it different ways, and we'll get into that now. The first thing you want to make sure is that you're doing it for the right game. Up at the top, you've got cash and you've got your tournament. So if you're a tournament player, make sure you're doing tournaments, and then if you're a cash player, make sure it's cash. And you'll have the groups here, and what you want to do is to create a new one. You hit the new, and then you put in the group name. So this is and we have the separator, the number of padding, and we show for everybody, but let's say you just wanted for yourself, you can put it there as well. So when you highlight one of these, you can go into the stat. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And for the table, let's take a look at that, because I do like to see some table stats. And then we click on the stats. So this shows everything I have in this group only. So right now I just have the table VPIP and the table PFR. One of the great things about PokerTracker 3, and let me move that over there, is that you've got hundreds of statistics that you could put in there. So a lot of people like to put various things such as maybe rake or the 3-betting percentages for the table. So maybe you want to put that in. So what you want to do is highlight it and then move it over by double clicking on it. And then you can move it up or down like that. So that makes it kind of interesting. And so now for the entire table, I'll get averages for the VPIP, PFR, and 3-betting preflop. We'll get into some of these properties and color ranges later, but they really make using PokerTracker 3 and the HUD a lot of fun and a much more efficient experience. So what we're going to do is go back and then look at the player stats main. So this shows all statistics for every player at the table, and the associated pop-up is this default pop-up. And that's when you click on the box and you get all those extra stats that you can't fit all the stats you'd actually always need in one little box and have it fit nicely in a HUD, especially at a full ring game. So what you do is you put it in this default pop-up, so you can just click on the guy and find the stat you need right away. So we're going to highlight this by clicking on it once and then going into the stats section. And as you can see, this is a pretty comprehensive set of statistics. And you'll see I've got this new line here. It's a special thing. So let's say you want 4 stats, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you want a new line, you double click this new line. And there you go. So in the first line I have VPIP, PFR, total aggression factor, and hands. That's pretty standard. The second line I have 3-bet preflop, fold to 3-bet, C-bet flop, fold to C-bet. And then finally on the last line I have fold to a turn C-bet, attempt to steal, fold the big blind steal, and then raise the big blind steal attempt, basically 3-betting against the steal. And those are the stats that I have in my HUD. Now I've already shown you how to add and remove stats from here and have it show up in your HUD. But there's more to do. So what we're going to do is take a look at color ranges and really making sure also the properties for each one of these stats is set correctly. So we'll highlight one, and this is where you're going to want to look over here. The font properties, we can change the size as well as the font, which makes it really cool that you can make it so customized, and you can actually even change it to italic or make it bold, whatever you need to do to make sure you see that stat the way you want to see it. I don't suggest maybe making any but the absolute core stats bigger than the rest or more bold, because then things will start to get lost and you rely on one more than the other. And you just want them all to be there, you know, the stats that you use to make decisions, you know, they're in kind of an equal light. And you've got also the ability to show decimals. This is something I don't see a lot of people use, but there's kind of a big difference between someone who 3-bets, you know, 3.1 as opposed to 3.9. It would just show, you know, 3 to 4, but, you know, maybe you need to see something in terms of an aggression factor, perhaps, you know, 3.1 as opposed to 3.5, which would show up as 3 and 4, but it turns out they're really actually quite close. The prefix will show you, you know, instead of just having the number there for VPIP, let's say it's 20, this will say VP:20. So that way you can remember what your stats are, and over time you'll probably end up deleting some of these just because you'll remember what they are and you've gotten used to your HUD. And the suffix is something that comes after that, obviously. And then the alignment is just like you're justifying it: left, center, right. So these properties can actually be tweaked around. I imagine you'll probably mess around a bit with the font type and the size to make sure that it maximizes the efficiency for your monitor and your setup. Let's take a look at the color ranges now. And you'll see, I haven't quite looked at these in a little bit, but it looks like these are really for kind of a full ring game. And I've color coded it to mentally make a note of what it means, so I don't necessarily need to even read the number. There's a color there to make a generality. The 0 to 12.9 means blue, and blue means passive to me. 13 to basically 20 is green, and that's normal. 20 to 40 is red, you know, loose aggressive. And then 40 to 100, purple, which means maniac. So I've got those 4 ranges. I've seen people with 8 color ranges. I've seen people with 2. It's going to depend a lot on the stat, and it's going to depend a lot on you and how you interpret things. And you'll see all the different ranges. And again, I think this is not too bad for a general full ring player. You'll have to tweak these values if you play 6-handed, and you'll especially need to change them if you play heads up. But this is a pretty good guide for you. Basically, PFR 0 to 5, 5 to 9. It's still pretty nitty. 9 to 19 is red, but I think that would actually, you know, need to be tweaked. I think anyone raising 14 to 20 is basically what they should be doing for a lag. So let's change that by hitting the edit, and we'll do 14 to 21. Haven't completely thought that through, but you'll get the general idea. Then we'll change this one to 21. And so we'll change this also to 8 to 13.99. And that's actually a pretty good range for full ring play. Anyone who's only raising, you know, 7 point whatever % or lower is definitely going to be considered pretty passive and very tight, even in a full ring game. 8 to 14, that's right in the middle of that tag range, and above that you're starting to get into the lag area. There are a lot of successful players that play like 17 VPIP, 14 or 15 PFR, and they don't consider themselves loose aggressive. They consider themselves tags, which is a matter of semantics. It's just a matter of how you feel they are. So keep that in mind. It's all dependent on your perception and how you play and where you play and what games you're playing. So you don't necessarily have to go off this, but it's just a nice general thing that I've used. It's definitely debatable, but I think this is a nice thing for people to go off of if you're just getting into this, for sure. So that kind of teaches you how to adjust a range and